I read somewhere that Skyscraper is this generation's Die Hard. And considering how creatively bankrupt and incredibly stupid Hollywood films have been getting, that's actually a very sound statement. There is not one memorable line of dialogue in all of Skyscraper. There is not one event in Skyscraper that made me go, wow, I need to see this again. Couldn't tell you the theme song or style of the soundtrack at all. It just washes in the background like white noise. I'm not knocking The Rock. I smell what he's cooking. The problem is, he's in the kitchen way too often. This guy's been in like 35 movies this year alone. He needs to slow the fuck down and pick roles that make sense for him as an actor. There wasn't a single instance in this movie where I thought, holy crap, how's The Rock gonna get out of this one? Even when he's stabbed, or I think maybe even shot at, I'm just looking at this guy like a tank that can just mow over everyone. He's Looney Tunes to watch as he's driving away on a police motorcycle. He stands out like a sore dick. He may have the worst movie track record of any actor, and that's including Pauly Shore, just because of the sheer quantity that he's putting out every year. Bottom line, don't see this movie in theaters. I wouldn't even rent it, honestly, because the movie's been done to death using the Die Hard playbook so much better in other movies that aren't Die Hard. And there's 4 of those. I almost said 5 Die Hards, but there's no 5th Die Hard. Okay, whatever that piece of shit was in Russia, that we don't count that. If you're looking for something similar to tickle your balls, you have Air Force One. Air Force Fun is more like it. Harrison Ford killing a lot of bad guys, kicking a lot of ass, taking a lot of names. You have Speed, if you want to stay grounded, pun intended. You have, what's that Steven Seagal one where he's on a boat? This is gonna bother me. I'm not gonna look it up. I'm gonna leave this as dead air until it comes. Under Siege, which is probably not that good anymore, but back in the day it was pretty awesome. Regardless, there's a ton of movies using this playbook far better. I'm gonna get into spoiler territory, I guess, for Skyscraper. There's very little to spoil other than the 2 hours you spend there, or hour 45. So don't really worry so much. There's no big reveals here. Everything is so predictable, you see it a mile away. Early on, there's a scene where The Rock is checking out all the security of this building that he, I guess, runs by himself. He has no staff as far as I can tell, but this gigantic billion-dollar building, or however trillion dollars, some ridiculous number, that's using 8K monitors everywhere and all this state-of-the-art stuff that, side note, got a side note quick, sidebar. Dwayne Johnson's in charge. I don't care what his character name is. He's always The Rock. He's in charge of this entire sophisticated building. He's dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and right as he gets his like tablet face identifier, the main head of this company goes, oh yeah, there's one more area to check out. That's the most priceless and expensive thing that we've put together. And he's just seen it for the first fucking time. It's ridiculous. And he's like, oh yeah, we better check this out, even though I just said this place is Fort Knox. Back to my point though, as he's getting ready to meet with the investors and everybody in the room, his wife, played by Neve Campbell, who, it was nice to see her again. It's nice. The last time I remember her was Wild Things, and I remember her fondly. But she does the super cliche scene where he's getting ready, he's buttoning up the shirt, he puts on the tie, and she comes up to him, and he doesn't know how to put that tie on, so she's fixing it, she's tightening it, and I've seen this in 5,000 movies. And as she's doing it, she's shooting off some of the most ham-fisted dialogue I've seen and heard, well, since the last movie I went to, because as I've stated, this is not anything new in Hollywood. The writers are apparently 12 years old, and this is all they know. As she's tightening his tie, she goes, you've been working on this for the last 6 years. You've put your heart and soul into this. This is your dream. Nobody could do this like you did. Oh, and by the way, you love me and you love your 2 beautiful kids more than anything else in the world, and you'd be super sad if anything ever happened to them. I should also point out that the film it opens up in Minnesota, where I'm from. And that was some fake-ass snow they were throwing down with CG. CG snow confirmed. That leads me to one of the main issues of this film is everything's so damn fake looking, so polished, that any sort of stakes that the movie might have had is lost. Because Dwayne is in front of a green screen for everything. When John McClane jumps off a building with a hose tied to him, and he's smacking against the window with his feet bloodied up, and he shoots the window and falls through into the glass, that shit looks real. Even The Rock in that scene, I don't think he's even real. Because Dwayne Johnson doesn't look like a person. He looks like a person who eats people for breakfast. He's just not natural looking, he's gigantic. And so once more, I don't have any connection with this guy. They try to give me some sympathy to throw at him because he's got the fake leg because he lost it earlier on in the film, like within 5 minutes of the movie. So this thing's popping off and on instantaneously like it's held there by some really shitty Elmer's glue. Why not use the duct tape to tape that shit on? Because he uses duct tape 90% of this movie. Anything that requires him to MacGyver himself out of the situation calls for duct tape. There's a few points in this movie where he says I love you to his family, who I don't know if they do love him or if they're just using him for his money and his credentials, but they never say I love you back. Like they're saving that big reveal for the final scene, which I don't understand at all. But there's one specific time where he says I love you to his son, and the son looks at him and goes, me? Or I don't even know if that was the inflection, but it was like, me. Either way, what the fuck was that? If you saw the movie, please help me out. I was utterly confused. I turned to my buddy and he's like, what just happened? Did they forget to cut? Unlike most action movies that focus on one central bad guy against one central good guy, this one has 13 bad guys. A comically over-the-top British guy that everybody knows is the villain within 2 seconds of seeing him. The mercenary bad guy. Then there's the hot chick who's good at martial arts. She's basically an Asian Ruby Rose. I was comfortably attracted to her, even though I'm not supposed to like her. I take my eyes off of her. The tech is pretty loony across the board, especially at the end when all these 8K mirrors come up and I guess it was supposed to be a cool scene. I found it disjointed and really hard to follow what was going on, other than the predictable ending where The Rock was right behind the bad guy because we couldn't totally copy Die Hard and have a gun behind his back, so instead The Rock is the gun. There's a scene in the movie where Neve Campbell can't figure out her phone because women, technology, you get it. So The Rock says to turn it off and turn it back on because that solves 90% of the problems. The wife is inevitably saved far earlier on than I imagined, and she's talking with the cops, and she somehow is able to get access to the tablet that controls the building that's 70-60% on fire at this point. The thing is like fucking in flames. It's an inferno, yet somehow all the power cables work inside. They haven't been melted down to a crisp. And she can't get the tablet to work. She's like, oh, I need to reboot the system. I need to turn off, turn on again. Winks at the camera, thumbs up. I will give props to one thing in this entire film, and that was a fight scene pretty early on where Dwayne takes on some henchmen in his apartment building, and that's pretty frantic, it's pretty wild, there's a lot of close-up shaky cam shit, but it works well. Does another Die Hard ripoff later on where there's the two FBI agents, I believe they're FBI agents, and they don't actually interact at all with The Rock. They interact with Neve Campbell one time and with each other one time. And you have the one cop who's like, this guy and this family, they need our help. They're doing everything they can. And the woman is saying, fuck them. They're in on it. How do we know this woman didn't pretend to be trapped in this fire with these two kids that she probably stole or paid off and then took an elevator down going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, hit the brake at the last second. They get jettisoned out of the building full of soot and ember, and it was definitely all planned out. They're definitely shady individuals. At the end of the movie, when Dwayne finally comes out, the cop goes, hey, I was watching you down here. Great job. No handshake or anything. He just makes the comment and we're supposed to get some sort of connection, I guess. Like he was Powell from Die Hard talking to John McClane the whole film on the walkie, defending him at every turn. That was an emotionally impactful scene because these two have been sharing this blood, sweat, and tears for the entire 2 hours. And when they finally meet, the audience gets to enjoy that confrontation. It's a cheap knockoff. It's an imitation. It's a poor clone in an era where we're already chock full of prequels and sequels and sidequels and full-blown remakes. I just want it to end. I want to like movies still, but it's getting fucking hard.